Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Barry, and once again today I think it is time to chat a little bit of F1 because of course we had the Portuguese Grand Prix this past weekend, and looking forward to the Spanish Grand Prix. It is my great privilege and honor once again to welcome the one, the only Sasha Martinengo. Sasha, how are you this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm terrific, Barry. Two race weekends in a row always makes me happy.
Absolutely. And a very interesting Grand Prix that we've had this past weekend. The title battle, of course, still continues between Lewis and Max Verstappen, with Lewis increasing his lead. But I think that what this weekend has taught us is that Mercedes is still very much supreme when it comes to outright pace. When you see that Max just sort of couldn't catch up to Hamilton. But with that being said, the Mercs didn't just disappear off into the distance like they usually do. So what are your thoughts so far about the Max versus Lewis battle?
Yeah, listen, it's intriguing. Don't forget last year, even though we only started the season in July, Max Verstappen after three races, I think, was about 30 points behind. So now he's only 8 points behind. And I think Red Bull did extremely well on a track that I think was going to be a little bit more difficult for them. Mercedes have had this incredible supremacy since 2014. So to see another team fighting that hard against them is very refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly thought when qualifying took place that we're going to have a Mercedes 1-2 situation once again. But I think Red Bull really did surprise me in the way that they actually were able to keep up with the Merc. So do you think it was just Red Bull that really have progressed that much, or do you think Merc has sort of not given up, but sort of just kept back some development that they would have done this year?
I think it's a bit of a combination of both, and also, some of these new regulations that have come in. Everyone talks about the rake, the height of the rear of the car, and the Red Bull seems to be a lot higher than that of the Mercedes. It's quite technical to understand it, but if you look at Aston Martin, how it's affected them, you can see that there is quite a radical difference. And also, don't forget, I mean, this is Honda's last year in F1. So, I mean, they want to try and give Red Bull the best opportunity ever to beat Mercedes. So there's a combination of both. I think both of the teams will continue to develop this 2021 car as the season progresses. But I think they would have already known what their developments are going to be. Thereafterwards, it's going to be, at this stage, it looks like it's going to be one heck of a fight between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm going to stay with Red Bull and Mercedes because for the first time, I think this season, Perez has been able to be up there with Max Verstappen, to be his wingman as such. For the first time in, I think, how many years, if you take that, nobody's really been able to keep up with Max Verstappen. And you think this is really the driver that they need to really be there to be able to sort of delay Mercedes and any strategical decisions that they might make?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think yesterday, we had the front row of the Mercedes, the second row of the two Red Bulls, but then Norris got the jump on Perez. Perez thought he had used too much road. Nobody, there were some strange things that happened in yesterday's race, which unfortunately actually left Perez behind. So when Perez did eventually get through Lando, Max was still on his own because Perez was too far down the road. However, he showed what a great driver is, and we know that Sergio Perez is a great driver. The next time we need to see the two Mercedes and the two Red Bulls going for each other. Sergio Perez still doesn't have the all-out pace of Bottas, of Lewis Hamilton, or Max Verstappen, but he's not far off. And the more that he learns that car, he's a vital cog to assist Max Verstappen this year. And the sooner that he can get to full grips with that Red Bull, the better it's going to be for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm really looking forward to when he's actually being able to compete up there with the Mercs. But now Bottas is someone who had a good qualifying. Of course, he started from pole, but the race wasn't as good as he'd hoped it'd be. If Valtteri can't play the number 2 role in the team, because let's be honest, Mercedes' expectations for every race, I'm sure you'll agree, is to come first and second. Do you think Mercedes will start looking elsewhere for that number 2 driver? Because at the moment, he is only 4th in the driver standings.
Yeah, it was such a strange race for Valtteri. You know, I mean, he got off the line brilliantly. He extended. He had, at one stage was close to 4 seconds ahead of anybody on the track.
Yeah.
And it was a very peculiar surface, the Portimao. It looks magnificent on the TV, but it's extremely green. It's very difficult to get grip for Formula One cars. Don't forget, it was originally built for motorbikes.
Yeah.
So as much as we enjoyed the cars sliding around or whatever, believe me, the drivers weren't enjoying it because they just couldn't get the right grip. And then something bizarre, either he cooked his tires too early and he couldn't get through this graining phase that we saw getting experienced by Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden his pace fell off. You know what I mean? Lewis passed him as though I mean, don't take this for gospel, but you know, passed him as though it was like a team order, like just go past.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just did. And Lewis is just a master of understanding how his tires are. Don't take anything that they say on the pit messages as gospel. Believe you me, it's all code. It's all code. So when he says his tires are off, it means they're pumping. Don't worry, he's coming into a window. But Valtteri had a strange race, you know, and then all of a sudden he did have some kind of electrical issue, which was unfortunate for him because he was catching Max.
He was, yeah.
And I think he would have passed Max, and I think it would have been a Mercedes 1-2. So, you know, whether or not Valtteri is just the most unlucky driver in the world, or it just also just goes to show how good Mercedes are and how good Lewis Hamilton is. Anybody who sits and thinks that Valtteri Bottas is a rubbish racing driver, he needs their head read. The guy is superstar.
Yeah,
but he's not superstar.
Yeah, unfortunately, he does have Lewis Hamilton for company, though. So I think
correct.
Right. Now, another team I want to talk about specifically is McLaren, because Lando Norris is consistently delivering for the team now for 3 races in a row. Of course, he had the podium in Imola, and he finished in the top 5 this weekend as well. But Ricciardo, on the other hand, just doesn't seem to be able to gel very well with the McLaren. So what do you make of the situation at McLaren for both drivers?
Well, I mean, this Lando Norris is just wonderful. He's astonishing. And he's never mind just a great single lap driver. He's a great racer as well. Yes. And we've seen that. So, you know, really wonderful to see. And he's got such a lovely demeanor as well. And Danny Rick, I just think when it came to qualifying, they most probably in a way thought they were going to be safe with the time that they had to get through. And they weren't. Yeah. And it's happened to some of the best. So, but in his racing yesterday, he was exceptional. You know, we know Danny Rick is a really good racer. But you do find this, Barrie, you know, that he has changed teams. Just as Perez needs to get together with the Red Bull, Danny Rick needs to get in control of that McLaren. And we know that he's got speed. I mean, when he went to Red Bull, he matched Seb Vettel. He was right there with Max Verstappen at Red Bull as well. So, you know, once he starts getting to grips, that maybe is one of the most underrated pairings in Formula One, Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris. So, you know, I take my hat off to them. I think Daniel Ricciardo will be very happy the way that he progressed through the field on a track that's very difficult to overtake. He drove an exceptional race to get into the points and right behind his teammate.
Exactly. And I think what people may not realize is just how different a Formula One car can be. I think many people who maybe aren't very big fans of the sport might think, well, it's a racing car, you know, they've got to be the same. But I know a few drivers who switch teams have said it's almost like you're driving a completely different car.
Well, you know, the power output, the power will, you know, eventually be the same, and you'll have to get used to the braking, because the braking is so severe in Formula One. But it's the small little things. It's the attention to detail, where they want the buttons on the steering wheel, the process that Daniel Ricciardo had at Renault, you know, might be completely different to that process that he's got now at McLaren. So just learning and understanding those things. Yeah. You're 100% right. These are, I mean, incredibly sophisticated, you know, cars. I mean, Valtteri Bottas is driving, in the next minute he's got his exhaust is overheating because there's some sensor that is telling them that is, and they have to reset something to change it. I mean, it's mind-boggling, the technology in these cars. It's wonderful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it does make the sport a little bit more interesting as well. Now Alpine is another team that did very well this weekend. Ocon qualifying P6, if I remember correctly, and in the end, both Alpines having decent top 10 results. Do you think Portimao was just a track that suited the Alpine on the day, or do you think that the results they got was done purely on merit?
You got to say that it is purely on merit. I'm hoping that it's not a one-off for Alpine. I mean, this is Renault. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Renault has been in the sport for so long. So I'm hoping that you know, we get to Spain next week, a home race for Fernando Alonso. I'm hoping that it's not a one-off. And Ocon really showed, you know, the class that he has. That a lot of people have been up and down, you know, against him. Alonso is still also trying to learn that car, and he got well out driven by Esteban over the
Yes.
weekend. And it's fantastic, you know, because it's just Fernando knows that he's got to up his game. But if Fernando can get to grips with that car, we also know that Fernando can deliver. So also terrific to see, and I hope that it's not a one-off, because we need Renault up there with McLaren, with Ferrari, and then eventually, I mean, imagine McLaren, Ferrari, Alpine, Mercedes, Red Bull,
Yeah.
you know, and eventually, let's say Aston Martin, you know, 6 teams who could all win races, Barry. That's what we're looking for in Formula One.
Yeah, and I mean, for me personally, I only really got into Formula One at the end of the 2013 season. That's when I really started following it. So for me, the sort of Mercedes hybrid year, that's all I really know. So I've been yearning for some competition for the last 7, 8 years, however long it's been. So we can only hope that 2022 will actually deliver that.
Well, that's it. But I mean, this is also the nature of Formula One, Barry. You do have these cycles. Yes, we've never had a cycle like this.
Yeah.
But you know, I was astonished yesterday reading some people's comments about the Grand Prix. Oh, so boring! I can't believe. And I went, what race are you watching? You know, are you sure you're honestly interested in Formula One, or is it just that you can phone your friend and say, oh, what, did you see that crash somebody had? I mean, that's why you're watching Formula One. Yeah, you're watching it for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. It was an outstanding race, and there were some brilliant battles all over the place. So anybody who says it was boring, honestly, I think they were watching the wrong race.
Yeah, absolutely. And another driver I want to touch on that not many people would necessarily care about is Mick Schumacher, right at the back. Towards the end of the race, he did manage an overtake on Nicholas Latifi, who, albeit that he was running out of tires, but an overtake's an overtake, and especially for the Haas team, I think it was quite an achievement.
I'm so glad you brought it up, Barry, because I voted him as driver of the day. I know that the world gave driver of the day to Sergio Perez, but to me, Mick Schumacher was the driver of the day. His fastest lap time was only a tenth slower than George Russell.
Yeah.
In a much more superior car, let's be very honest.
Yeah.
And Mick, we know, is not known for his one lap brilliance. But as a racer, he was unbelievable. And to chase down that Williams lap after lap and be in that DRS zone, but he just could not get close to the Williams. The Merc power in the Williams and the aero compared to the Haas are quite dramatic.
Yes.
But eventually forced Latifi into a little bit of a mistake and took that position. That was done on merit and great driving. And I was so impressed with young Mick Schumacher yesterday, because never mind having his own race, he also had to sit there and watch, you know, every car just about come past and pass him. So he had to watch out for blue flags everywhere. And, you know, I thought he was outstanding yesterday. I think, you know, I mean, he's only raced in 3 races, but that showed, you know, that this kid has definitely got something.
Yeah. And I think Günther Steiner also came out and said that just his work ethic in general is, Günther said he doesn't even really speak to Mick. It's just him and his engineers that are just slowly grinding away at all the data. I think it speaks volumes for the sort of racing driver that he is as well.
Yeah, you know, we could talk hours and hours about the Schumachers and where he is. I'm just so delighted that he's actually gotten into Formula One on merit.
Yes.
And in the first 3 races, he's done an exceptional job in a car that is poor. I mean, listen, I say poor with the greatest respect to Haas. I mean, it's still a magnificent motor vehicle. But they have, you know, flat out said they're not doing any development on it. And that is the car that the guys have got. And to have gone out there and actually beaten a Williams on merit, and we also know Williams have got their own issues. But to have done it on merit, and Williams have made a massive upgrade from last year, is a wonderful thing to see for Haas and specifically for Mick Schumacher.
Yes, no, absolutely. Now, another thing I want to talk about, we didn't speak about last week, is a new addition to the Formula One calendar in not too distant, the Miami Grand Prix. What are your thoughts on another on another US Grand Prix, and what do you think was Formula One's sort of intentions in introducing this new Grand Prix?
Listen, Miami is a magnificent place. So wonderful to go racing there. It's another street circuit. Street circuits are wonderful, but they're not so wonderful. Since the onset of Formula One in 1950, Formula One has always tried to capture more of the United States market.
Yes.
But the Americans do prefer the NASCAR style or the IndyCar style of racing with those rules and regulations. They don't, for example, quite understand that you could play a football game for 90 minutes and not have a result.
Yeah.
To them, there must be a result, and it has to happen there and then.
Yeah.
So for Formula One, which is a lot more technical, a lot more intricate, it is a little bit more complicated. However, we've got Circuit of the Americas, which is a magnificent circuit, and people love going to watch it.
Yeah.
So having another race in the United States is wonderful. The more the merrier as well. You know, we've got we hopefully will keep Mexico eventually. Hopefully Brazil will be kept. Canada we've lost this year.
Yes.
But, you know, 2 in the United States. You know, all of a sudden we're getting this fair share of East and West, as well as the middle of Europe. The next one's Africa. That's it.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because Mr. Domenicali has come out and said that in the next 5 years there will be an African Grand Prix. Of course, there have been so many rumors throughout the decades of F1 coming back to Kyalami, but it does seem like, you know, it's not guaranteed to be in South Africa, but I know you said in the past, African Grand Prix has to happen at Kyalami.
Yeah, I still feel that way. I don't believe we're within Africa, in Kenya, Morocco, even Mozambique. I know that they're redoing their circuit. Zimbabwe's actually got a lovely little track as well, but they're nowhere close to being FIA graded.
Yes.
Okay, so Kyalami is the closest that we are to an FIA grade, unless they go for a street circuit, for example, in Cape Town, because they want a backdrop of a wonderful mountain.
Yeah.
Kyalami is the obvious choice. To go there. It's now just, unfortunately, the shenanigans of our South African government that has to be involved, because there's no other way that we can afford it. And unfortunately, they don't have the best reputation when it comes to looking after a pool of money that comes their way and distributing it in the right ways.
Yes.
But I'm confident. Yes, I do believe we will have an African Grand Prix very, very soon. And I firmly believe the only place it can be is Kyalami. I don't see any country in Africa or even South Africa building a purpose-built circuit for Formula One. We are one grade away from Formula One status at Kyalami. It makes really obvious and logical sense, and it's just a magnificent circuit as well.
Yeah, and I actually saw a comment the other day on Facebook or somewhere that someone said they don't think that Kyalami would suit modern day F1 cars that well. Of course, it's very hypothetical because we've never had an F1 car on the new Kyalami track, but do you think that F1 would suit Kyalami?
Oh, without a doubt, 100%. I find that comment quite peculiar, to be honest. There are only very limited changes since we had the A1 Grand Prix and the Formula One ×2 races here, and everybody that I spoke to who raced there loved it. So now we've actually even got a longer straight, which would actually encourage some overtaking going into, I suppose you would call it turn 2, even though there's a funny little kink in turn 1. It's a magnificent circuit, and I think there are great opportunities. But just like in any circuit in the world, sometimes it is very difficult to overtake in Formula One. It's just that simple, and in any form of motor racing. But yes, answer the question, Kyalami is perfect for Formula One.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly looking forward to it because it's been too long since I've experienced an F1 car, so we're gonna only hold thumbs. But Sasha, looking forward to this weekend. It's the Spanish Grand Prix. Do you think that Max Verstappen will help that it would be a little bit more exciting than it was last year?
Spain is always a difficult track because it's a circuit that everybody knows and everybody loves, but it's a difficult track to overtake on. But everybody struggled in Portimao. So, Red Bull can't just sit there and say, oh, we struggled in Portimao and Spain's going to treat us better. Mercedes also struggled. It's back to level playing field. Everyone knows the circuit. Traditionally, the Spanish Grand Prix is where major updates come for the cars, but this year we know the updates are all going to be minor. But I do expect some updates from certain cars to be there. A deciding factor, I think, Barrie, on this is the weather.
Yes.
Weather is going to be critical from now through the season. Don't forget, since COVID, Pirelli and the FIA decided that they would decide the compounds for each Grand Prix, and the allocation would be the same for every single driver.
Yeah.
So, for example, in Portimao, we had the soft, the medium, and the hard, but we had the hardest of each of those compounds.
Yes.
And the 20 degrees outside temperature affected it dramatically. How a warmer circuit, perhaps in Spain, we are getting into the better part of spring, might make a difference. It could affect some teams negatively, and the one that worries me is Ferrari.
Yeah.
They seem to struggle, which is untraditional because they used to be very good in hot weather. Now all of a sudden they're not very good. But as long as this wonderful battle between Mercedes and Red Bull continues, and we know now that Red Bull can chase Mercedes. Might not happen at every track, but we know that Max can chase Lewis and Lewis can chase Max. And what we did find out yesterday is just give Lewis Hamilton a little sniff and he will come and get you.
Yeah.
Max learned that properly yesterday, and Max now has to sort of, in a way, teach Lewis, I can do the same. And I think regardless of anything else, I think we're in for another very intriguing Grand Prix.
Yeah, and I did have a look at the weather. It does seem as if there might be some showers Sunday afternoon.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Right. Sasha, Thursday evening, 7 p.m, F1 Pit Box. Where can people tune in for that?
Yeah, F1 Pit Box, which is back where unfortunately we weren't there last week because I was full of the flu. But we'll F1 Pit Box, 7 p.m. on my Facebook page. Otherwise, my YouTube page as well. There'll be links on all of the social media as well. And also, Barrie, if I can just say, this coming Sunday, for those who are in the Gauteng, Joburg area, I'll be back with the F1 Pit Box live at the Barrie in Witkoppen in 4 ways. All COVID protocols, so book a table, get there early because there will only be limited amount of people that will be allowed in. But so excited to actually interact physically with fans again. So I'm really looking forward to that.
No, absolutely. I'll put all the links in the description below. So if you're interested, make sure you follow Sasha. But Sasha, thank you so much once again. It's just an absolute privilege and honor to be speaking to you. And let's go racing.
Let's go racing, Barrie. I always love chatting to you. Look after yourself, my friend.